Very good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much. We'll start with the lecture. In the earlier lectures, we have seen about aerobic respiration, the components involved in aerobic respiration, the structure of mitochondrion ultrastructure, and then we have proceeded to see the 4 important complexes which are involved in the electron transport chain of aerobic respiration. Okay, that is also called as oxidative phosphorylation. Okay, so in today's lecture, we are going to go beyond that and we shall have a look at about how the proton gradient actually generates ATP. Okay, that is a very, very important concept, which is called as chemiosmotic hypothesis, chemiosmotic model. And this was given by Peter Michel. I think in one of the earlier lectures, I have already mentioned this. Okay, and the essential thing about this particular concept is that it is a coupled process. Okay, where there are 2 reactions happening. One is a chemical reaction of ATP synthesis, and the other reaction is the osmotic transfer process. Okay, it is a membrane dependent process where the protons are actually translocated from one side, that is the inside of the mitochondrial matrix, to the intermembrane space. Okay, that is between the outer membrane and the inner membrane. So when the protons are translocated there, a large concentration of the protons is going to build up there. Okay, and because of that, there is a concentration gradient or a concentration difference across the membrane. Okay, on the outside, we have a high concentration of protons. We also have a high positive charge on the outside, whereas the inside of the mitochondrial matrix, that is essentially a negatively charged place, okay, negatively charged, and the concentration of protons is also comparatively very, very less inside. Okay, and that is why we have an electrochemical gradient. Okay, that is electric charge gradient as well as the chemical concentration gradient. Okay, and because of this, a kind of a pressure is exerted on the membrane from the outside. That pressure is responsible for the potential difference. Okay, we say that there is a potential difference across the membrane. Okay, and this pressure or this particular energy which is stored in that particular concentration gradient, that energy is ultimately used for the synthesis of ATP. So I think I have been repeating this again and again, and the very reason I'm repeating this is that you should understand this concept very well because it is important for biology. Okay, in fact, as I told you that this is one of the greatest unifying principles of biology, and therefore it is so important. Okay, we have already seen this kind of a reaction, ADP plus PI plus the protons in the inside, that is the matrix. Okay, that gives rise to ATP, ADP plus PI forms ATP, and then of course the oxygen molecule is converted into water molecule by reduction process. Okay, and then the protons are going outside. These protons are responsible for ATP generation. Okay, just a minute. Okay, welcome back. And okay, then we'll go to one experimental observation. Okay, very important experiment, and I'm going to explain you this experiment, and you have to understand it properly. Okay, so what is done in this experiment is mitochondria are taken from the eukaryotic cells. They are isolated. Okay, how do we isolate mitochondria? Any guess or anything that you remember from the earlier semester?
Centrifugation.
Which centrifugation? There was a particular kind of a technique that we have learned in the last sem related to centrifugation.
Ultra centrifugation.
No, not ultra centrifugation.
So density gradient.
Maybe, but there was one more important technique which was used for isolating various organelles in the cell. You have
Sir,
forgot.
different
Yes, yes. Who is that? Who answered that?
Yogita.
Yogita. Oh, Yogita Deshmukh, very correct. Congratulations for that correct answer. Okay, so differential centrifugation is a technique which helps us to isolate the different components in the cell. Okay, what we essentially do is we carry out successive rounds of centrifugation, and for each successive round we increase the time, or we increase the speed of rotation, or we increase both. Okay, and then one by one the different components can be separated. Okay, initially the more dense components are separated, and then by increasing the time or by increasing the speed, we can increase the subsequently low density organelles or molecules from a sample. Okay, so that is how we isolate the mitochondria, and these isolated mitochondria are suspended in a buffer, and that buffer contains ADP and inorganic phosphate, and it also contains an oxidizable substrate. For example, it could be succinate. Okay, and then when this is done, then we are going to measure three things. Okay, three parameters we are going to measure. One is how much amount of that substrate. It could be malate, it could be succinate, fumarate, or oxalate, or whatever. Okay, so how much amount of that substrate is oxidized, that we are going to determine. Then the next thing we are going to determine is how much of the oxygen is consumed from that system. Okay, because oxygen is going to be used up in respiration as a terminal electron acceptor. Okay, and the third thing that we are going to measure is how much of ATP is synthesized in the process. Okay, so what are the three things we are going to measure? One is how much of the substrate is oxidized, then how much oxygen is consumed, and the third one is how much ATP is synthesized, right? Okay, so then we proceed. We can proceed it this way. Just a minute. I have this particular slide here. Okay, I'll go to that slide a little later. First, let me finish off with this slide, which has come in between. Okay, so this is what is telling us about the chemiosmotic model, and this is an important thing to understand because there might be a question in the exam. If it was a descriptive type of exam, then it would have been a big essay type of a question answer that could have been expected from you. But since I think this will be an objective exam, you should read about this description, and there could be any question pertaining to this particular concept. Okay, so what is the chemiosmotic model? The electrons are going from NADH. I think we have already seen this diagram earlier. Okay, electrons are coming from NADH here, NADH plus NH plus, and the protons are released, the electrons are also released, and the electrons are going through the complex number 1, complex 2, complex 3, and complex 4, isn't it? And ultimately, oxygen is converted to water, oxygen is reduced to water here. Okay, and in this process, we have seen that for every one oxygen that is consumed, one oxygen molecule, we have a total of 4 plus 4 plus 2, that is 10 protons which are coming out of the membrane into the intermembrane space. That is going to generate the proton gradient. Okay, and therefore it is written here in this description that the electrons from NADH and other oxidizable substrates such as succinate, they pass through a chain of electron carriers such as the complex 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these complexes are arranged asymmetrically in the inner membrane. What is the meaning of this word asymmetrically?
Different.
Yeah.
So not equal.
Yeah, so it actually means that there is no symmetry as per the localization of these molecules is concerned in terms of the orientation of the molecules. Okay, position of the molecules as well as the orientation. The meaning of this is that you will not find all the molecules on only one side of the membrane, or only on the other side of the membrane, or exactly at the center of the membrane, or in a particular orientation. For example, a particular part is facing inside, another part is facing outside. and for all the molecules, exactly the same thing is happening. It's not like that. Okay, it is not exactly like that, but the different molecules are placed in a different position with respect to their orientation and position within the membrane. Okay, and that is very important. For example, cytochrome C molecule here you see is a peripheral protein. It is not integrated with the membrane, but this molecule, this complex number 1 or complex number 3 or even complex number 4, they are actually spanning the membrane. Okay, but even though they are spanning the membrane, you will see that there is a lot of difference here. Complex 1 and complex 4, for example. Okay, their orientation need not be exactly the same. So that is the meaning of this word asymmetrically arranged. And we are going to learn more about this term asymmetric arrangement of membrane proteins when we are going to study the next unit on membrane biology. Okay, so I'm not going to talk more about that. The electron flow, okay, from complex 1 or rather NADH to oxygen. This electron flow is accompanied also by the proton transfer. We have already seen this 10 protons are transferred across the membrane, and that produces both an electrical gradient and that also produces a chemical gradient. Okay, so electrical gradient we refer to as the delta psi. In the bracket it is written here, and the chemical gradient is referred to as the delta pH because there is a change in the pH across the membrane. Okay, the inner membrane is impermeable to the protons. Okay, so whatever protons are going out from these proton pumps, as we can call them, okay, because they are pumping the protons outside. Now these protons cannot come back inside the membrane, okay, whenever they want and from wherever they want to come. They cannot come because the inner membrane is impermeable to the protons. Okay, so how do they come then? They're exerting a pressure on the membrane. Okay, and then what they can do is there is this ATP synthase enzyme. Can you see that here? The purple color one here.
Yes, sir.
I'm showing it with the cursor. Okay, so the protons which have gone out here, can you see the plus signs here, red colored? Plus sign indicates that there is a huge gradient of protons outside and inside is negative, relatively negative. Okay, so there is a pH difference because pH is the minus log of H plus concentration. So here we have a H plus concentration, some H plus concentration. Okay, and therefore the contents are more acidic here outside, and they are more alkaline inside here. Okay, and these protons are not now going to come inside the membrane through this particular ATP synthase. We have two components here, FO and F1. FO is a membrane spanning region here, okay, through which the protons are going to come inside. Now, the protons are not just coming inside like that, but they are carrying a lot of energy with them. That energy is by virtue of their high concentration, and the energy is also by virtue of the high electric potential. Are you getting this point? Okay, so as the protons move inside through the ATP synthase complex, the F1 part here, which is projecting inside the mitochondrial matrix, this F1 complex is going to get that energy. It is going to trap the energy. It will change its own conformation in a certain way. We are going to see all the details of that, okay, in a short while. Okay, this ATP synthase will then use up that energy to convert ADP into ATP because ADP is already now binding to this enzyme at a proper appropriate site. There's an ADP binding domain or subunit where the ADP will bind. And then because of that energy which is obtained, the ADP will, in fact, it requires very, very less energy for converting ADP to ATP, but it requires a lot of energy for the ATP to get released from that subunit, okay, particular subunit of the F1 part. Okay, we are going to see that details little later, right? The proton motive force drives protons back into the matrix, and the proton motive force is what provides the energy for ATP synthesis. Okay, and this is catalyzed by the F1 complex which is already associated with the FO complex in the membrane. Okay, so that is what the chemiosmotic theory tells us, a very, very important thing. I had one paper, research paper, it was like actually a review, and that was about how the cells make ATP. But unfortunately, I do not know if I gave that review to somebody, maybe to some student or somebody, and then I couldn't trace it. I couldn't find that. That was many years ago. I think it was in the year maybe two, 2000, maybe 7 or 8. I don't remember exactly. 2007 or 2008. Okay, so I had that review with me that had come in one very good scientific magazine. The name of the magazine is Scientific American. Have you ever heard this name, Scientific American?
Yes, sir.
Where did you see that journal? Have you seen it anywhere? Have you seen it or have you just heard about that name?
Yes, seen it.
Seen it. Very good. Where?
In the college.
Wonderful. Which college?
Yogeshwari Mahavidyalaya, Ambajogi.
Yogeshwari Mahavidyalaya. I think I should visit that college once. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe I can give you that job. Okay. Because I have lost that review, which I wanted. And the interesting thing is that I was in Pune University. I was going to the library very often. And in that library, I tried to search it because that is, I had obtained this review from Agharkar Research Institute. I was working in Agharkar Research Institute for my PhD for 6 years. I took 6 years to complete my PhD. And after that, at that time, probably I found this review. I had I had made a copy of that review, and then I thought it would be useful for students sometime in my life. And then I did get an opportunity to become a teacher in one college in Nasik, where I gave that review to somebody and I lost it. And then in Agharkar, I went again and I tried to search it. I didn't get it. That particular magazine was there. That Scientific American issue was there. Okay. And when I turned the pages, and unfortunately, I found that those very pages which I wanted, which had this particular review on ATP synthesis, those pages were torn away by somebody. What happened? Those pages were already torn away by somebody. फाडून टाकले होते ते पानं कोणीतरी. And then I went to Pune University, Jaikar Library. In Jaikar Library, I found that same issue. And again, when I turned the pages, those pages were missing again. Okay. And then at a number of places, I think I searched for this and I couldn't find it. Even on the Google, I tried to search it, but I didn't get that review. Maybe it might have been made available afterwards. But recently, in the last maybe 6 months to 1 year, I have not searched for that review on the internet. Okay. So if you get the opportunity, maybe you can try. I'll give you the exact reference. Okay. Just remind me in the next lecture. I will give you the reference of this paper and then you can try to find out. But Shamim, if you think that journal is available in your library, Yogeshwari Mahavidyalaya, then maybe you can tell some of your acquaintances there. Okay, if you know somebody there, then you can ask them to find out whether that particular issue is there. And if it is there, then ask them to find out this review. Okay, if it is there, then I would like to have a copy of that. Okay, everybody can share that copy. Okay, that will be very good for our collection. Okay, scientific collection. Okay, so yeah, this is one theory that we are going to understand, obligate coupling. Okay, so the two reactions, that is the electron transport chain and ATP synthesis. Okay, these are two different reactions, but these two reactions are mandatory. Okay, for each other. If one reaction happens, the other reaction can happen, and if one reaction cannot happen, the other reaction cannot happen. If the other reaction cannot happen, then this reaction also cannot happen. Okay, so that is the meaning of obligate coupling, right? And this particular concept has been proved by the use of inhibitors. Okay, so we'll see how that takes place. Okay. Okay, inhibitors of electron flow to oxygen. For example, cyanide. I have already talked about it in the earlier lecture. Okay, cyanide. Then there is carbon monoxide or antimycin A. So these are all the inhibitors of the electron transport chain. Okay, and if these inhibitors are used to stop the electron flow, then what has been observed is that it also blocks the ATP synthesis. Okay, ATP synthesis also is inhibited when electron flow is inhibited. On the other hand, there are some inhibitors like oligomycin, for example, oligomycin, venturicidin. Okay, these are the inhibitors of ATP synthesis. Okay, they inhibit the ATP synthase enzyme. Okay, so if these inhibitors are used to block ATP synthesis, then they also block the electron transport chain. Okay, even if the mitochondria are intact, right? So in other words, these two reactions are dependent, they are interdependent on each other. And that is why we use the term obligate coupling of the two reactions. Okay. Now, another thing is if there is absence of ADP, if you don't add any ADP in the medium, or if there is no ADP available for the mitochondrion to carry out ATP synthesis, then of course ATP synthesis will not take place. And at the same time, that will also inhibit the electron transfer to oxygen. Okay, so this is very interesting thing. And because this particular inhibitor oligomycin blocks the FO subunit, okay, of the ATP synthase enzyme, right? In fact, this FO portion of that ATP synthase is named as fraction oligomycin sensitive. Okay, the name FO actually is derived from this particular term. Okay, oligomycin sensitive. Is it right? Have you all understood it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Then another interesting thing is if oligomycin is used to inhibit the ATP synthase, it is actually blocking the proton pore. Okay, so that is there is a small pore through which the proton is going. Okay, in the ATP synthase complex, right? So if oligomycin is used, then oligomycin actually blocks this pore. Okay, the pore is blocked, and therefore the proton cannot enter inside the membrane. Okay, so now what will happen is the proton motive force will build up. Okay, that is the proton concentration outside the membrane will build up, okay, to a certain level. And if that concentration gradient equals, okay, or if that energy which is stored in that concentration gradient, if that energy equals the energy which is released by the electrons for the transfer. Okay, so electrons, when they are transferring to the different components, they are also carrying the energy. Okay, so that energy which is released in the electron transfer, if that energy and the energy of the proton gradient, if that exactly matches, okay, then the electron flow also will stop. Electron flow cannot happen. Okay, so that is an important observation. If we block the oligomycin sensitive portion of F1 complex by using oligomycin, then the proton motive force will build up to a certain level, and after that level there is no more electron transfer that can take place. Okay, till that time some electron transfer can take place. Okay, but on the other hand, if we completely destroy the membrane, mitochondrial membrane, inner membrane, by using certain physical agents or by using certain chemicals like detergents, for example, then what will happen is the ATP transfer, ATP synthesis cannot happen. That is because the membrane is damaged. If the membrane is damaged, then the potential gradient will not be formed. Okay, the gradient will be destroyed. So ATP synthesis will not take place. But on the other hand, the electron transfer from succinate or NADH to oxygen, that transfer can still happen. Okay, so in other words, what we are actually doing is we are separating the two processes now by using detergent. Okay, or by destroying the membrane, we can actually separate the two processes. ATP synthesis is as a different process that is inhibited. That cannot happen because the gradient is not built up, but the electron flow can still happen in all those four complexes, unless and until all those complexes are still there in the membrane. Okay, so although we are disrupting the membrane, if the components in the membrane are there in the membrane part, okay, even if it is a small piece of membrane, then the electron transport can happen, but ATP synthesis cannot happen. Right? So what I have told you in this slide is there are two things which are contradictory. One thing I have told you that the ATP synthesis and electron flow are obligately coupled to each other. One cannot happen without the other, right? That is what I have told you. And on the other hand, I have also told you that if the membrane is destroyed by using detergents, by using physical forces, then electron flow can happen, but ATP synthesis cannot happen. Why ATP synthesis cannot happen is because the proton gradient cannot be formed, because the membrane itself is broken. Is it clear to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Then, okay, one thing I would like to remind you is before going to the next part, okay, this meeting will end in some time, maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Okay. After that, I will again rejoin. I will reconnect you all to this meeting. Okay. For another, say, 10 minutes or something till 12 o'clock. Yeah, I've got the warning that 10 minutes are remaining now. So this 10 minutes plus the other 10 minutes, I will engage the lecture. Okay. And afterwards, if this particular topic is not still completed, then I would like to complete this topic today itself. Okay. So if whenever we get time, say after, is Buktar madam engaging your lectures? Yesterday, did she take the lecture?
No, sir.
No.
No,
Okay.
from today.
Okay.
Not take.
Day before yesterday?
No, sir.
No. Okay. So if that slot is available for me today also, I'll just check whether Buktar madam has arrived in the institute. And if that slot is available, I'll continue with this lecture for some more time. Okay, just to complete this portion, because there is no type, no point in breaking this particular part and again teaching it tomorrow. Okay, so I want everything to be completed in this particular today's session itself. Okay, so let us go to this another interesting kind of an experiment where we are trying to understand the coupling of the reactions. Okay, coupling of ATP synthesis with the electron transport, and how we can use uncouplers to separate these two different processes. Okay, so I'll just magnify this slide, and I want all of you to pay your attention here. Okay, very important experiment. Can you see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so now this is an experiment which is carried out where we have a system and maybe we have a buffer, and in this buffer we are putting isolated mitochondria. Okay, so mitochondria are suspended in a buffer, and there is oxygen. We have an oxygen electrode. Do you know what is an oxygen electrode? It is a device, okay, which can measure oxygen. Okay, so this electrode is connected to a detector part, and then whatever oxygen is consumed in that medium, in that buffer, that can be analyzed, that can be determined by using this pH, this oxygen sensor. Okay, now what we do is at different intervals of time, okay, we are going to remove the sample, say a small amount of sample, maybe 1 ml or 500 microliter or something. And then these samples are removed and analyzed for the presence of ATP. Okay, how much ATP is formed, that also we can determine by using a biochemical reaction. There is one very common reaction which is called as the luciferin luciferase assay. Okay, so using that assay we can determine how much ATP is synthesized in that particular medium. Okay, now what we do is when we start the experiment, at the start of the experiment, we add ADP and inorganic phosphate. Okay, just look at this graph here. Okay, The black colored line is indicating oxygen consumption. Can you see this black colored line? That is telling you about the oxygen consumed. It is given here on the y-axis, O2 consumed. On the x-axis, we have time. So at different intervals of time, say 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever that could be the interval of time. Okay. Based on that, we are taking out the sample. And from this sample, we are measuring the amount of ADP and inorganic phosphate. Okay, sorry, we are measuring the amount of oxygen consumed, and we are measuring the amount of ATP synthesized. The red colored line here, can you see this? Red colored line.
Yes, sir.
That is showing you the ATP synthesized. Just look here on the secondary y-axis. Okay, we have two y-axis here, the primary y-axis and the secondary y-axis. Okay. Right. Now what we do is when we add ADP and inorganic phosphate, and then we take out the sample at different time intervals and we measure the oxygen consumption, black colored line, we see that there is very, very negligible change in the oxygen consumption. In other words, we can say that no oxygen is consumed. Okay, can you see this line here? It is almost a flat line. Okay, and then if you measure the ATP, even the ATP synthesis is not taking place here. You see a flat line here, red colored line. Is it correct? Why that is happening? It is because we have not added any substrate. Okay, just listen to my words carefully. We have not added any substrate. We have only added ADP and inorganic phosphate, and we are expecting that it will be converted to ATP. But will that happen? It will not happen because there is no source of electron that is added to the system. We have not added any substrate. We have not added any succinate. Is everybody following what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can just take a look at the graph while I'm explaining. Okay, I'm showing with the cursor. I'm explaining with the help of the cursor. And if you can pay attention to my cursor and what I'm saying, then I think there should be no problem in understanding. Okay, now at a particular point of time here, we are adding succinate. Okay, add succinate. And the moment we add succinate, what we are actually adding is we are adding a source of electrons. Right? So what is going to happen? The electrons are going to be transferred, okay, through the different complexes. And ultimately what will happen? Oxygen will use up the electrons. Oxygen will be converted to water. Okay. And therefore I would say that oxygen is going to be consumed when I add succinate. Okay. So can you see the black colored line, which is increasing here? Steadily increasing. Can you all see that? अरे कोण आहे हा प्रसाद गिरे? प्रसाद तुमचा कोंबडा आवर बाबा. Shubhangi, yeah, your mic is on, so that is creating some problem here. Okay. का कोणी झोपलेलं आहे आपल्या क्लासमध्ये म्हणून कोंबडा आरवतोय? नाही ना. Okay. तर what I'm saying here is the moment we add succinate, okay, oxygen is going to be consumed. Why oxygen is going to be consumed is because you are adding electrons. The electrons will go through the electron transport chain. It will go to oxygen. Oxygen will be converted to water. Okay. And therefore you will find with the help of the oxygen electrode that oxygen is getting consumed. Right. And then if you are measuring the ATP, what you will find is there is an increase in the concentration of ATP. Can you see the red line? It is increasing. Okay. Is that clear to everybody?
Yes, sir.
Prahlad, Sudarshan, Azun Kone, Bhandare, Dnyaneshwar is there. Dnyaneshwar, you had called me in the morning, but I couldn't take your call. Okay. Because I was in transit. I was coming to the institute. So normally 9:30 onwards, I don't receive any calls. Okay, because I'm already on my way to the institute. Okay, then okay, now in this experiment, what we are going to do is we are going to add an inhibitor of the electron transport chain. Okay, so here we are adding cyanide. Can you see that? At this particular point of time, okay, you can look here on the x-axis. Okay, at this time, whatever that time may be, arbitrary unit. Okay, we are adding cyanide, and the moment we add cyanide, the electron transport will be blocked. Okay, and then what you see, your observation will be that oxygen consumption also stops. Can you see this line coming back to the normal flat level? Okay, oxygen consumption has stopped, and at the same time, ATP synthesis also has stopped. Okay, so what does the experiment prove? The experiment proves that when you stop the electron transport chain, the ATP synthesis also will be stopped. And therefore, we are trying to establish this fact that there is a coupling between the two reactions. Electron transport and ATP synthesis are coupled reactions. Have you understood this graph? Okay, I have another 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, so I'll try to finish off with this graph also. Okay, we have a similar kind of an experimental situation here. Okay, but instead of adding ADP and PI in the beginning, here we are doing something. We are adding succinate first. Okay, add succinate, and you find that there is no increase in the oxygen consumption, and there is no increase in the ATP level.